to Cloud Unplugged. I'm Jon Shanks.
And I'm Jay Keshur.
And today, as mentioned in the previous episode, we are talking about building talent and more academies of like how you can grow, I guess, the skills in your business, mostly around really engineering.
Yeah, the things that we know, right? So cloud, engineering, I mean, sort of know. Delivery management, product management, some of the things.
Yeah.
And then what characteristics lean into some of these things.
Yeah.
And sales and marketing as well.
Yeah, really, I guess it's all like growth, as if you're wanting to grow people into different roles over time, and you're not just going off to hire people that have like completed it, so to speak, and then they're going to come in and then just do the doing.
Yeah.
And this is about how do you build that talent pool up so that you have people that are going on a journey with you in your business and growing with your business. And
so much to be said about people that kind of understand like where you've been, you know, like when someone has been in a business for a long time and they become like super valuable to the business because they just know how it operates and stuff. But getting that fresh kind of perspective on things, bringing new people into the industry, even like cross sector, so people that are kind of joining tech or this domain for the first time from different industries are not like in the new to work. Yeah, they're moving from another domain. Is really super useful. It like if you kind of go on the journey that we've had in terms of like engineering and getting to learn sales and marketing, and then applying the same engineering practices to those domains and how useful that's been. It's like pretty cool.
Yeah, useful, non-useful, depends on how you want to look at it. But yeah, I think it's got limitations.
Oh, true.
Definitely. But yeah, it's been good. It's been good learning. But I was also thinking about like, because there's so many different routes, like apprenticeships, and, you know, maybe return to work people or universities, or maybe even people that aren't, not even either of those, and just basically people that are fresh out of school, or, you know, because some of our skills like cloud, do you need to go to uni to be good at cloud? There's so many cloud courses on there. There's so much out there for deving. You might have a hobby. Yeah. You might just really enjoy it as a hobby but never studied it. So to build a good team, I guess, do you think you should have a mix of those things?
I genuinely think it starts with passion. I believe that you're never really going to be good at something that you don't have a passion for. Like really good at something, right? If you're kind of just like mumbling along and doing a job, and you're not passionate about it, then you've got no curiosity to learn more about it and drive it and things like that. So yeah, like you said, you could come from any level, but unless you're kind of passionate about it, I just don't think that you'd learn very fast, or have any real desire to pick those things up quickly and then retain that knowledge, because it's about retaining that and building on that retained knowledge.
Yeah, true.
Let's say you are kind of you are passionate about, let's say, tech or something like that, and you've not gone to university. What would you say like is a good way of breaking into the industry?
So if you're a business, and there's lots of routes to attract people through, you know, what would it take to make it work? And obviously you're going to have to have the right internal infrastructure.
What do you mean to train that person and make sure they're supported and stuff? Or?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things that you probably want to explore before people come through. So you need to first of all work out what are all the things that we want somebody to go through that tells us that they'll work well inside this organisation.
Yeah.
And that could be like communication, you know, collaboration, not even really just technical skills, aptitude.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to think through those things. Then you've got even the selection criteria post that, you know, the interview stages, once they've kind of gone through those bits. And then you've got to then train those people up. And so you've got to have the right material and train them up. And then they've got to be mentored enough, because obviously they're not going to have learned everything in such a short period of time to be exceptionally, you know, like nailed the industry after like 6 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
So then you're going to have the right coaching and mentorships in place so that you can grow those people and you've got to have those types of people that can mentor in the business who really enjoy that and really enjoy coaching people and really enjoy, investing in others as much as everything else. And that's quite once you've got those things in foundationally, I guess they'd be the main things to look at. And then I guess then it boils down to where you find them and what type of people you want a mix of. But yeah, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things, but then I
guess you're whittling down from all of the people looking for jobs that are kind of wanting to come into
you've got
business.
A screen, haven't you?
That's what I mean, right? So in normal kind of graduate programs or kind of quite wide-reaching popular programs, you have literally hundreds or thousands of people applying for a single role, and there might only be like say 4 or 5 in that grad intake at a certain company. So going through that kind of shortlisting process to then get people into a program, just as much as the company you're trying to find the right person for your company, that person is also learning and exploring what it is to be in that industry, and they might drop out. So, and there's quite a high percentage of people that do, right? So it's a kind of fit both ways until you get to the kind of them being in your business and going through the probation stages and learning stages and all that kind of stuff, and then growing. But it's a really good thing to do, to kind of pass on your skills and to keep people kind of coming in and
to invest in other people. To invest. Fair, I kind of met that company ROQ, and I was speaking to them about what they'd done. And they'd done like a phenomenal job of like a lot of lessons learned, and then figuring out where things worked well, where things didn't work well over time. But put a lot of energy into perfecting it as much. Obviously, it's never done thing. It's always going to change. That was really insightful in terms of like actually what they'd done already.
Nice.
And even mentioning like job centres and things, they said they actually had success from that, like not just even the actual legit
DWP job centre.
Yeah, actually going to a job centre and registering the job at a job centre. Which I just for me, I know it sounds bad, but I
wouldn't even think to do that.
Well, I guess because you kind of think
in tech,
I don't know. You've got like a bit of here in the UK, a bit of a negative connotation to anything government, a little bit like it's not very effective. It's a bit harsh, but given the news, kind of warranted, I suppose, to a degree. But
I genuinely did. I completely forgot that job centre exists. Because you just you think about like LinkedIn and like all of these different kind of sourcing platforms, if you will, on the internet. And there's actual physical things called job centres. Wow.
I know, and so like I know I didn't really dawn on me either. To be fair. Which is kind of obvious when it was said to a degree, but you just forget about those things because you get so like wedded in your own
little world,
to exposure to things. But they'd obviously done quite a lot of this stuff, and then obviously we've also worked with other companies like NetBuilder, I think, that then got bought by QA Consulting, etc. And they obviously did similar models, and there's like Makers Academy and all these different ones that then other bigger organisations then tend to use, especially financial institutions. So there's like patterns for this stuff, and they bring big cohorts in and from different sources and kind of go through, trying to sift out who the right fit is and who isn't, and then who's going to be able to commit to this type of skills they're looking for. But I think the biggest thing is trying to work out where you're weighting the people, because I think over time, depending on where you are in the stage of business, what you need, softer skills. I don't know why, but I think soft skills, if you get the aptitude right, unless you're looking for an absolute genius, like somebody that just has a real propensity to something that's quite unique compared to the rest, like they're in the very small percentile of that industry, then the rest is probably learnable. Like most people, if you've got the right attitude and the right aptitude and commitment to it, can learn it if they're committed to do so. And I think it's harder to learn softer skills.
For sure, right? They're just
they're
more
kind of
ingrained.
Intrinsic to people's personality traits and characteristics.
Way more ingrained, 100%.
So, yeah, I'm definitely in favour, probably more on the soft skills, unless you need certain people for some reason that have got very, really good experience that you're going to wait. Actually, the softer skills maybe aren't quite as important than the capability. And you're like, actually, I don't mind, them more weighted on the capability than the other ones. So it just depends what it is you're looking for. But
yeah, I guess the value that each kind of person brings is so unique to the person to a certain degree, rather than the role, right? Because even if you don't necessarily have attitude, aptitude, and all that kind of stuff, culture is another thing that changes massively every time. Every time you recruit someone into the business, you are changing the culture of the business just a little bit, and that can have quite a huge impact to the business as well. So
do you know of a company that's got a culture that you admire? I don't know, like, if I suppose you might only ever know of the big brands.
That's what I mean, right? Exactly. Like, so there was this book that I read called No Rules. Have you heard of that?
No, I don't think
so it's about the kind of rules or lack thereof at Netflix.
Right.
And it was quite, talked about the culture at Netflix and the fact that there are no rules, or the rules are like really, really, like, they're super simple. Like, their expense policy, as an example, is do what's right for the business.
Right.
That's it. It's not like,
that's true though.
What do you mean? Is that their expense
But who
policy?
decides what's right?
Exactly. That's the point. So you create something really ambiguous, and set that as the principle or the policy or the rule or whatever, and the whole book was about that. Is the behavior or culture that drives.
I see. By having no rules, you get to define your own rules.
Kind of.
Because principally you would have to, wouldn't
but
you?
Then like the culture and the rules is just what people do, right? It's not really whether or not you have roles. It's just what culture is, what people do. That's how you define culture.
Yeah, dynamics between people as well, obviously.
Like, but that's in terms of action.
Yeah,
normally it's a favour for.
But I think a lot of leaders, like the leadership of a team, will dictate quite a lot.
Most culture is top down, always.
Yeah, because if you've got certain leadership and they're hiring people in that team, and that's going to create a dynamic of a team. And if that team is quite different to a dynamic of another team, and they've got to work together, and you've got different types of leaders and different types of dynamics going on.
But it only goes so far, right? So, like, let's say Amazon. Jeff Bezos isn't exactly defining the culture of, like, Amazon warehouse work. Do you know what I mean? Like, even in the example that you gave,
didn't he create certain rules where teams had to, like, the API for the engineering aids. APIs is like you can't really talk to each other. It needs to be defined. And that would have defined the culture, presumably. Like, when you start to put rules in place like that's top down, then I imagine he has influenced the culture. Just by defining what he expects people to behave like in terms of even engineering standards.
Very easy for an area that is like that, like an engineer and teams and things like that. But do you reckon the same is true of, say, warehouses or the other kind of stores, Amazon stores and things like that?
Yeah, one of his other rules.
List off the rules. Go on, let's see this.
One of his other rules was basically you could never wear different coloured gloves, and that caused that was a big
old uproar. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know of that one, but I don't know about warehouses and things like that. Obviously, that's different, and then the culture there might be different to the rest of Amazon anyway.
That's what I mean.
As a business overall.
So, do you reckon the culture is somewhat set by, like, the job function and the company
and the size
and the
there's only so much, but that's nothing to do with obviously building talent. But however,
no, exactly.
It is massively important because I think like you're saying, the culture and the people you're looking for definitely are interlinked. But I do on the cultural side, it is strange how cultures shift. Even with different people coming and going, like, you'll see a change in culture depending on the size of your business as well. But even at a micro level, a team culture will change depending on who's coming and going in it.
Yeah.
Right? So it might not stay the same, even like micro, and then macro is then obviously different again.
Just to kind of go back to the question that you asked me, is there a culture that you, from the outside, like aspire to?
Yeah, I kind of asked you, and then was hoping I'd have enough time to come up with my own answer because I'm not good to mind. But also, whilst I watched you struggle, I was like, I have got
That's
nothing.
a really hard
I've got nothing to answer here. Like,
nice one.
Just
Thanks,
a
man.
vacuum of empty space.
Brilliant.
Because I think I concluded the same. I was like, actually, there's probably some bits I like admired on like working environments, which is a piece of the culture overall. You know, in like Google when they first started, and like the food and all the other things. And that was obviously
that's all gone away. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think they've stopped that maybe.
Yeah.
So there's bits of it that sounded kind of, you know, quite good in terms of like treating staff and giving back to people that are working, and that was quite a nice culture because basically at that point you are saying you can have back, but then people are coming in and just eating the food.
Yeah, I mean, there's that.
Apparently, anyway.
There's that, but there's also like that whole. Did you ever read the book The Circle or watch the show?
No, I thought my brother watched that, but he came.
No,
was talking about.
No, that may be a different thing. So
on TV,
there's a Circle, which is like some reality TV show, but then there's a Circle, which is, it's about like this kind of this company that's very Facebook Meta like.
No, I don't know.
It's really, the book is great, but it describes that like typical tech campus in like San Francisco where they've got
slides,
like beds and slides and free food and everything is on everything is in the air. You know, you don't ever need to leave the campus, but you know, knowing that like Google and all these places kind of, you know, their headquarters
is
are
it like a
there.
Black Mirror episode?
Kind of
is it like what if you to watch like a Black Mirror episode where it's like, but in the context of
tech
yeah.
So that it's great. It's so good. The book more so than the film. But when you were talking about Google, it really kind of just reminded me of like a company's intention to drive the culture for its benefit rather than because it's the right thing to do necessarily. Do you know what I mean? Like that. Like sure, you feed people. Yeah, gamifying a little bit. Like. You're feeding people. Is it to keep them there longer? Is it because happy employees create better work? Like what is that? There's always a something.
Yeah.
So maybe culture is defined by intention more so than the thing.
I mean, that's
I don't know.
Quite a cynical approach to like anything.
I'm just like playing. I'm playing with it.
It's
right?
like saying
discovering
no one's really altruistic because they get to feel good.
Truly believe that no one is altruistic.
There you go. You see.
Truly.
So any kind deed is already tarnished.
Yeah.
Well, then we're never going to win with that because then if it's like anything.
You don't believe that?
Well, no, but I mean, then that means that anything the company was to do is tarnished because it's got an ulterior motive to some degree.
Potentially, but do you believe, just to go back a little bit, do you believe that there are real, true altruistic acts?
To a degree. I wouldn't say like,
that sounds like a no to me.
Well, it depends on like, in truth, people can be giving. Obviously, whether it's like whether you felt good about it, whether it made you feel better, like all those things obviously have a selfish element to them, obviously, because you've done it and it was a good thing to do, but it also made you feel good.
Yeah.
So in that context, then I suppose you could argue, oh well, is it really altruistic?
Yeah.
But I mean, other than someone else feeling good in the process of doing a good thing, I'm not sure that's like
there's levels.
Now doesn't mean like, oh well, that's not altruistic, and you're like,
there's levels.
Like,
of
well,
altruism.
okay, sorry for feeling good about a good thing I did.
But I guess there's levels of altruism, right? There's always going to be. There are some things that are like heavily.
Stop
weighted.
enjoying doing good things.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing altruistic about that. You're not supposed to feel anything, okay? That's true altruism.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you feel worse than the thing that you've done, you're
supposed to feel nothing.
It's net altruism, not feels like a tax. You can't enjoy it. Going back to talent and culture, and you know, then Google and people that you aspire to. So
I think it's just because I like food. So when I saw that, and I was like, do you know what? I went through a phase of eating like a lot. honestly, like
Couldn't tell.
especially in the mornings. And when I found out that people at work there were getting like free breakfast and things like that, I was like, my God, I'm spending a fortune on breakfast right now. I was like, years ago.
I'll take a job. I'll take a pay cut just to get a free breakfast.
I was like, actually, I'm like quids in with this. For the amount, literally the cost to me on just my breakfast alone is justified. But no, I think I quite like the antithesis of it. And then I've worked in companies where you'd have like beer fridges and beer Fridays, and the beer fridge would come out. I think it used to be on wheels as well, which is kind of cool because he'd move it around.
Everyone else,
exactly. It was like a bell, a beer fridge bell,
nice.
And it like commanded people to like, you know, stop working,
come and enjoy,
and that's good.
And you follow the drinks cart, right? So like,
I know
you kind
did.
of always, yeah, exactly. Just jump on the drinks cart. Yeah. I am the drinks cart. No, it's exactly. It's been there's places that you've worked where and what is a bit sad is because of all of the stuff that's gone on with COVID and, you know, this like the recession and things like that. It feels like a lot of those experiences people coming into the workforce now won't necessarily get.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's like
remote
and remote working and things like that. That was like, it was a real nice part of that learning workplace kind of culture.
I'm a massive fan
experience.
I'm a people person anyway, in the sense of like I like being around people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't imagine starting a job being a remote worker.
Exactly.
For me, like absolutely no way.
So hard to connect
for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it, honestly.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't work for me. But there are people it does work for, but I just couldn't do it. But I guess those things again, I suppose that culture, even when you're onboarding people then and training.
Yeah.
That'd be tricky. I kind of feel like you'd have to do it in person.
Yeah.
The onboarding.
Oh, for sure.
That stuff we've said, all those things would feed into how someone's going to fit in. So if you were going to induct somebody or you're trying to sift through and you've got a certain culture that is like of a type and you're expecting people, you know, you want people to be part of everything and you want, you know, there's a big social aspect that you've kind of really think is very important to the culture of the business, then I suppose you've got to look for that to a degree if it's really important. And
exactly.
You know, and it helps everybody else and helps them.
I'm always talking about films and TV shows, but you know, Mad Men.
Yeah.
And like smoking is obviously a big thing back then, and like there was a whole culture around smoking and thing, right?
And drinking.
Yeah, of course. But it feels like that. I mean, that's not. I don't see it as a negative thing at all.
What, smoking?
No, as in the fact that we've lost that smoking indoors or taking a kind of a cigarette break together and things like that. How people won't necessarily experience that because it's a bit weird. But
what? So you're saying you don't care that it's gone?
I don't care that it's gone
because you didn't do it.
I didn't smoke. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So it doesn't affect me at all.
If you apply that to quite a lot of things that might go that you didn't do, you probably won't care either.
Probably not. No, exactly. But you know, to a certain degree, there's a culture that went with that, and really social, getting to know people, and you know, that's how you bond with other people and get to know other parts of the business and things. So there's a lot that just disappears completely with like remote working, and even like value to the business because you're connecting with someone else in the business and you know you're exchanging ideas and what you're doing, and it's just the impact is actually quite high. Probably.
And trying to like problem solve. I mean, you can kind of do it now digitally and remote, but
with like tools like Miro and things like that.
The other thing, and this is a thing that I don't think you can ever really stop, is when someone's in a room with you, you can say close your MacBooks. And like keep your phone closed. So I know if you're engaged, right? I can tell because you're in a room with me.
What a dictator!
I can't
this guy
tell.
just like
a rule in meetings. Like
true.
No distractions. Really to focus. So like no MacBooks, no laptops. Like you have to keep them closed. No phones either. Like we just need to solve this problem. But when you're remote, you know that there's like a Slack message popping up or there's an email thing that might be checking.
And they're on their computer.
And they're context switching. So they're kind of half engaged in what you're trying to do, you know, and then they're then flit into something else and then coming back. And that's not very productive if you're like all trying to get brain power on a problem. And that's really high. You can't do that digitally. You can't ever know.
I bet you know what? I bet that there is a app or some sort of mobile device management thing that forces that to happen.
Well, all the apps shut.
Like, or it locks just to full screen video.
Red button.
But
attention.
I guarantee
closes
you.
all their apps.
I mean, I've never looked at this, but I guarantee you that exists. Someone has thought about that, and it probably is a thing. If you haven't,
it's very dogmatic, but at the same time, like, I think, as somebody that does get distracted easily, and I will, because I can't help not look at Slack sometimes. I'm a person that does it.
Yeah.
So exactly. Somebody will be chatting to me, and I'll be like, I'll have an attention span for a while, and then something else gets my attention, and I'm just like that. And then
fluffy dog.
And I'm kind of listening, and then I'm like reading, and then I'll like pretend and like, So we should. Yeah, I agree. And it's like, I didn't really fully hear what you just said. Do you know what I mean? And it's like really bad because you're like, I'm allowing myself.
No, people know that. That's when they ask you for pay rises nowadays.
I watch everybody do it.
So
honestly,
it's fine.
I literally watch. Somebody were really bad for it as well. And I'll be like, and I watch people do it all the time with one another, even if it's not me. And you just think, we're all not paying attention to each other because we've all got attention span issues here because we're getting sidetracked with.
Maybe because of remote working. Maybe TV. Maybe. I
don't know, but
Netflix and all of these ad things.
It's got to have had a productivity cost on when you're focusing on a problem and how committed people are to, especially when it's really important and hard to like solve because you're like, how do we solve this? And but anyway, so I don't know how people do it remotely. I wonder if there's like been an issue on those things. Maybe not.
I mean, if you're talking about the drinks trolley problem, it's not really not that hard yet.
So when we say we're going to talk about a thing, what we really mean is we'll
have a chat,
introduce that, and then talk about something else.
Yeah. So back to talent.
Talent, culture.
You need
important.
It. Culture was good to have.
Yeah, and all the things like I think in person, definitely. Even if I was remote, I would definitely onboard people in person to see how they interact with people and train them up in person, I think, personally, but obviously horses for courses.
Obviously, we're always like doing interviews and, hiring and things like that. One thing that keeps coming up is like people that don't put their cameras on. And in obviously during remote working and, certain cultures within certain businesses, a lot of people are used to not putting their camera on, right? Unless they're like speaking or not even then. And then you just lose so much social behavior, social interaction.
You don't get a good connection or feel
dynamic
visual. It's just a voice on the
you don't
end.
like.
You're basically just doing phone interviews.
That's it.
Basically.
Yeah. But even the phone has less latency than audio call on over the internet, whatever. So when someone wants to speak, like they make a little noise or an intonation or something that kind of lets you know that they're ready. Whereas on like on video calling platforms, a lot of the time the platform itself has streamed that out because it's minimizing noise, it's cancelling the noise, background noise, and that intonation that you might have, like that's gone. So you don't pick up on the same social cues that the person is either trying to interject or say something or whatever else. So just like those things, if you can't see the person, it's just not fluid, no matter how in tune you are with what's going on.
Cameras, maybe that should be part. You should be told. I think.
Exactly.
Like, should be on. I've never had that in my interviews, honestly. It's strange. I've never out of all the interviews, no one's never not put the camera on.
Sometimes it's because they have a tech issue and then we have to reschedule or something like that. But I've had that a few times.
Oh, interesting.
But also with, when you're working with customers or whatever else, it's a culture you can't change it coming in there as a client.
You have
right?
to have cameras on.
So exactly. So
I mean, I get it, but you can put a background on now, right? So if there's something, you can always put a background on.
But people are just like not used to, not wanting to, show their face, or not even necessarily the background nowadays. It's like, I haven't done my hair properly, or
what's
not a problem for me. But,
we're getting massively off topic, but like, what's your view when people can have AI filters? So basically, it's not their face, but it's just whatever face.
No,
it's not acceptable.
It's terrible. No,
but it's a face.
It's a face. I don't want to be talking to.
But it's a face that might look like
a cat
really,
or something.
No, not a cat. But I mean, like just a.
I know,
it could
a
like
face.
Just like a tweaked face, or like some face that they feel more comfortable with.
Yeah, no.
Would that be? But how would you know if it was really good? And it was like literally you couldn't tell.
If AI gets so good that happens, I'm moving to only in-person interviews.
Imagine if they arrive with your face and you've basically interviewed yourself, but with a different voice.
Wow. This conversation got quite weird quite quickly.
We're still on topic though, interviews. We're still on topic. Anyway, I don't think this has been the most insightful,
informative podcast about talent.
Other than the fact that I think we have listed quite a few things, I suppose. I don't feel too bad.
We've enjoyed it anyway.
Yeah,
exactly. And hint, if you haven't already guessed it, we are hiring. So please do look at the website and hit us up if you are looking for a role or want to come into the cloud area.
Yeah, and don't forget, obviously, we're on cloudunplugged.io and where the episodes will be, and on Twitter as Cloud Unplugged and YouTube.
Thanks, everyone.
Speak soon.
Bye.
Bye.